Hello. Welcome to my 31st October. I'm Lucky27, and this is a series of stories I have often told about my life. Today's story is entitled Apartment Hauntings. In this story, I'm going to talk about the strange situations that took place in 3 of the apartments I lived in while in the same state. Part of this story was requested by a subscriber, so here goes. When I went to college for my profession, I moved back to a certain state that I have spent most of my life trying to stay away from. I ended up living with my sister while going to school. After I had graduated and had been working at my profession for a while, I decided that it was time for me to move into an apartment of my own and save up to move my husband in with me. You see, we had been living in 2 different states while I was in school because he had a good job back home. So I ended up living in this new apartment by myself for about 6 months before he was able to join me. Whilst I was there alone, nothing really happened. I did feel pretty safe. But of course I could acknowledge that the area was a little bit strange. There was a time that I had a fellow colleague of mine over, and we started talking about the energy that was in the area while we were on my porch. She and I both felt that we were between a good energy and a bad energy, and we agreed that both seemed to be watching over the town. There was a cemetery, about a block or 2 north of me, that felt like that was where the good energy was coming from. But there was a river about 3 miles or so south of me that also had a cemetery near there, and that was where the bad energy felt like it was coming from. But I felt fine. Even after my husband moved in, nothing really happened in that apartment until they started renovating the place. The first thing I can recall that ever happened there was the little girl that was at the end of the bed. For a few nights before I was made aware of her, I had felt tickling at the bottom of my foot every night. Now, I have a really good sense of touch, and my skin is also very sensitive, so I'm used to the feeling of things. I thought it might be the sheets, or possibly the ghost of my cat who would come and visit me and lay on my feet, but it wasn't either. Then one day I was sitting on the bed sewing up some holes in my clothes while watching The White Queen with Max Irons and Rebecca Ferguson. My husband walked in and sighed, obviously annoyed with something at the foot of the bed between me and the television. I asked him what was wrong, and he said that there was a little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, standing at the foot of the bed watching me sew, and that she had followed me home at some point. I asked him if it was her that had been tickling my feet for the past few nights, and he said that it was. He also said that she was angry. I asked if she was angry at me, to which he thankfully said no. He said that she was angry about a dumpster. I asked if that meant that she had died and been put in a dumpster, and he said probably. To which I then asked why she had followed me home, and he said that she felt safe with me and that I gave her comfort. So I then told the little one that she could stay with me as long as she wanted, and that I wouldn't send her away. My husband just rolled his eyes and left. But she did end up becoming a great help to us later on. They started renovating the complex, and they were going all out. So there were large droves of people on the coast selling off their houses for large amounts of money, and then buying up apartment complexes in our area so that they could remodel them and charge huge amounts. That is why we ended up moving from that complex, because our little 500 square foot, 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment went from being $875 a month plus utilities to $1,125 a month plus utilities. And all they did was put in some new floors and some new windows and a new balcony. That's it. That's really all they did. Less than a decade later, that same apartment is going anywhere between $1,700 and $1,900 a month. Completely unrealistic to me. Anywho, it got really noisy around there. We also had some downstairs neighbors that were problematic, to say the least. They had been there longer than us, but there hadn't really been too much of a problem until the remodel. She was partially deaf and had a hard time getting around because she was also overweight. He was mentally stunted in some kind of way and was verbally abusive to her and to any family member that wouldn't give him money, even though he did have a night job and she was getting disability checks that he was taking from her. They were hoarders with several cats, and we would hear him yell at her and family members over the phone whenever he wasn't playing his video games. I avoided them as much as I could, since he would make it his business to come out and follow me around if I left the apartment to go get the mail or take out the trash so that he could flirt with me. And she was always giving me the stink eye whenever I said hello to her, since I'm pretty sure she thought I was trying to steal her man, which, no thank you, definitely not. Ew. Thankfully, a lot of that behavior ended when my husband moved in with me. He's a pretty big guy, so baby boy downstairs steered pretty clear of him and me after that. However, after the renovations started, my husband was asked to help out where he worked by traveling around the area helping with remodels of nearby stores. This meant that he started working around 3 a.m. in the morning most nights. This wouldn't have been a problem except something had woken up during the renovations of the apartment complex, and it was pretty interested in us, especially my husband. The first time I can remember it being a problem was when I woke up to my husband coughing and gasping for air next to me in bed. I pushed on him, which I guess woke him up or gave him the strength to get up, but up he went, and he was on the hunt. I'll admit, even I was a little scared of him. He charged into our bathroom and stared down a section of our shower until I finally asked what had happened. He told me that a shadow man had attacked him in his sleep, and he had chased it into the bathroom where it had disappeared into the wall. After that, it would show up at night, mostly when my husband was at work and I was alone. I saw it one night just standing outside the door of our bedroom while I was trying to sleep because I started sleeping with the hall light on. It was tall and thin and completely pitch black. I started not sleeping at night during those days. I would sleep until my husband had to leave, and then I would get up and watch shows or do crafts until the sun came up. Then I'd catch a nap before going to work. When I told my husband this, he told me that I was safe in the bedroom because the little girl was keeping it away from me. He said that the shadow was afraid of her for some reason and wouldn't come into the room because she wouldn't let him after he attacked my husband. It's funny because on the night that I had seen him in the doorway, I did note that he wasn't looking at me. He instead seemed to be focused on something at the foot of the bed. I guess he was looking at her, deciding if it was worth pissing her off. He must have decided it wasn't a good idea. It seemed to go feed off the couple in the apartment below us after that. It still would come up and test us from time to time, but the little one was always there to keep him away. When we moved away from that place, I told the little girl that she was welcome to come with us, as we were only going a short distance away. I explained how grateful I was for the protection that she had given me, and that even though she hadn't had the greatest go of it when she was alive, I loved her just the way she was. I also told her that I understood if she wanted to stay and keep the shadow man from hurting anyone else. She didn't come with us. Maybe she stayed to protect the next people that moved in, or maybe she moved on. I don't know, but I will never forget her. The next apartment we lived in was interesting, to say the least. It was run down, unkempt, and bug-infested. It wasn't all bad, though, and I do have good memories with it, but there was a reason we only lived there for 8 months. It was a 940 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment for only $975 a month, so it was good for what it was. However, the haunting that took place there was slow getting started, and we didn't have too many issues there. Within a few weeks of living there, my husband and I were both aware of a presence in our bedroom that liked to hang out in the space between our closets. It didn't seem evil, just mischievous. my husband felt as though it wasn't something that had ever been alive. Rather, it had been created because of a situation involving a mentally unstable child and bad juju. Either way, it was now conscious and living with us. Now, I had given my husband the second bedroom as his man cave. I was never in there. Whenever he would leave, he would turn off the light and leave the door open. But I used to find the door closed and the light on when I was home alone. I would close the door and turn off the light, thinking that maybe my husband left it on by accident. But I would end up passing the room later on that day without him ever having come home, to find the door closed and the light on. After this had happened a few times, I addressed the presence from outside the door. I told it that if it wanted to be alone in that room, that was fine. But it was not paying the electricity bill. I was. So it needed to turn off the light. Then I would pass the room a little while later to find the door still closed, but the light would be off. It never turned it back on, but would still close the door. This story will be continued in part 2. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the journey with me. I'm not sure how often I'll be posting something here, so leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and the bell, so you get updated when I do post. If you have questions or you want to know more about something I've said, please leave a comment and maybe I'll make a video explanation on the subject. But please be polite and courteous with the comments. My feelings don't get hurt, but the world has enough hate and judgment in it. It doesn't need yours on this video. If you think you know who I am, please don't leave a comment guessing my identity. Just send an email to the address in the description box. Thanks, and I'll see you when I see you.